Hi everyone, my name is Reese and welcome back to PCOS Millennials. Before we start, I have a guest, a very special guest for today in our podcast. And today we're going to talk about real stories, real struggles, and real hope for women living with PCOS. But before that, please follow, subscribe to PCOS Millennials on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, X, YouTube, and Spotify. And don't forget to visit our website at www.pcosmillennials.com. Subscribe for a free resources, ebooks, and podcasts. So today, I'm very honored to have a very special guest, like what I've mentioned, all the way from Canada. She is the CEO and the founder of Looop of Neuraura. So a company that's changing the way we understand and manage PCOS and through science and innovation. So what makes this conversation extra meaningful is that our guest isn't just a leader in women's health. She's also her own personal journey with PCOS, which inspired her to create something revolutionary for women around the world. So let's get to know her story, the heart behind Loop, and how this innovation could one day reach Filipinas here in the Philippines who need it most. So please help me welcome Claire Dixon. Hello, Claire.
Hi, thank you, Reese.
So how are you doing today?
I'm great, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. This is the first time that we're going to have our conversation like this. So let us just enjoy our conversation. So before that, what time right now on your end? Because right now it's 12:06 a.m. So on your end, it's with now.
Well, I'm based in Canada, in Western Canada, so it's 9 a.m. in the morning now. And winter arrived here about 2 days ago. So, yeah, so very different time zone, but also very different season, I'm imagining.
Yes, yeah. Right now here we're doing great. Cool season is coming up because it's Christmas. Yeah, we're really feeling the Christmas now. So yeah, let's start. So right now, Claire, can you take us back to the beginning? What was your personal journey with, PCOS? Like how it did lead you to create Loop?
Yeah, so I mean, it all makes sense in retrospect, right? Quite often when we look back at our personal journey, we make sense of it later. Um, when I talk about now kind of my experience of PCOS, I really think it started, when I was very young. I got my first migraine at 8 years old, and at the time didn't even tie it with changes in hormones that were happening at that age. But I think kind of what, like many of us, what was kind of the most intense period of me was I went through almost a decade of fertility challenges and recurrent pregnancy loss. And then I did have a son, which I'm very grateful for, but, then had preterm birth, was kind of screened for gestational diabetes. He unfortunately had to spend some time in the NICU, and then, had postpartum depression. And now when I look at that whole period, obviously I can make sense of it all, as I'm doing my research. But, through that whole journey, none of my doctors mentioned PCOS to me. And so, obviously now I know a lot more about the condition. And then, at the time when we as a company started to work on this solution, I was being tested for high cholesterol. And my doctor was trying to put me on statins to treat high cholesterol. And so, I kind of can chart this map across life now into obviously kind of in midlife. But, never across that journey did any of my doctors talk about PCOS. And when I asked, why we didn't talk about PCOS, the response I got from my doctor was very kind of stereotypical. she said, well, you don't have a BMI of over 35 and you don't have, severe facial hair. So why would we talk about PCOS? And so, obviously knowing what I do now, like that just adds fuel to the fire, right? Knowing that there is at least a 70% diagnostic gap. And so, a lot of women are out there, they're struggling with symptoms or complications of the condition. And, it's really hard for them to get, diagnosis, let alone care in this space.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Claire. I can really feel the heart behind your story. And, a lot of women actually here in the Philippines, including me, never get a chance to reflect on when it all started. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually. So for us, because here we're very busy just trying to cope.
Yeah.
And the confusion and the frustration, it's endless doctor visit, like what I've experienced, and the feeling of not being understood, like what you had, that there's no facial signs. Even me, I do not have any signs of PCOS unless I got diagnosed. So it really, takes so much courage to turn something painful and personal into a mission and help others, like what you're doing right now with Loop. And, it's very inspiring that I have you here right now sharing your story. So was there a specific moment or experience that made you realize, something has to change, it has to stop these things, and I need to do something about this?
Yeah, I mean that's where kind of my personal journey and professional journey interact. So, Neuraura, our company, we've been around as a medical device company for a number of years, and we were thinking about kind of what we were going to do in terms of shifting our focus, our primary indication that we were going to tackle. And as part of that, basically members came to us and schooled us on PCOS and described it to us, not as just a reproductive disorder, but really talked about that burden of disease and how it was affecting women. And as a team, we were absolutely outraged, right? Obviously the penny was dropping for me, right, in terms of understanding, like, just like what had happened to me and kind of the journey I'd been on. But we just got really angry. How can something be so common, have such an impact through life, and for the standard of care is commonly, and I'm not sure what it is in the Philippines, but it's commonly not to diagnose, but just to give somebody kind of hormonal contraceptives to kind of mask the symptoms, and say, come back when you want to get pregnant, right? That's kind of the norm. And so that's just not good enough. Given that we know PCOS is such a significant risk factor in many health-related killers of women, right? So everything from diabetes, cardiovascular disease, dementia, certain types of cancers, like just like it can't stand, right? And I understand the reasons, right? In women's health overall, it's just neglected space in terms of research and funding. And PCOS is tricky, it's complicated, but like that's no excuse to kind of put that burden, on the individual and not do something about it. So when we realized we could, we felt we had to.
I just remember when I got diagnosed with PCOS, my previous OB just gave me a contraceptive, and I don't know what to do with it because that's the first time that I need to take those. So I can't, I really don't know how to use it because I mean, as for me, I am expecting, because I have a husband, of course. I am married, and we're expecting to have a baby the soonest as possible. But when she gave me a contraceptive, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that. Definitely. So, I mean, that's the frustration. If they do not know, I mean, if the healthcare system in every country do not know how to pursue with the specific diagnosis such as PCOS, we really do not know how we can, meet something that can cure or prevent from it, right?
Mhm.
So actually, many women struggle silently with PCOS symptoms for years before getting diagnosed, and that was happened to me. So, what was your experience? I believe Canada has a very nice healthcare thing in your country. I'm not really sure, but here in the Philippines, it's a taboo thing. The PCOS is a taboo here. So what was like, I mean, the experience of healthcare system in your country?
Yeah, I mean, and I think yeah, we are very lucky in general. But I'd say, unfortunately, I think there's a set of common issues. I haven't got a formal diagnosis. My doctor wouldn't even consider it. Um, because of that predisposition, and so, like effectively, like that puts the problem back on you, right, as an individual. I think, everyone I speak to all around the world, there's some systemic issues. I find that um, fundamentally, when women try and engage with the healthcare system, um, we're often find that our symptoms are dismissed or downplayed. Um, And, in the case of PCOS and other common women's health conditions, there is significant overlap, right? So if you go and you say, I'm experiencing heavy bleeding, right?
Mm,
That could be a
yeah,
symptom of PCOS. That could be a symptom of endometriosis. It could be a symptom of fibroids. Um, and so, it's tricky, right? Um, but a lot of that, you know, all of these things can be diagnosed, right, if they're taken seriously. Um, and I feel like often we kind of face a bit of a wall. So, without, TMI, right? I'll give a recent example of, going to the doctor and saying, I'm bleeding heavily.
yeah.
And the doctor says, well, how do you know? And I'm like, because I'm nearly 50 and I've been menstruating for like 40 years, right? So, and I happen to know, right? I'm bleeding through a pad in less than an hour. I'm having to get up overnight to change a pad. I happen to know kind of the words that doctors would then recognize from their training. And so, from these types of experiences and the experiences that I hear from others, like what we're trying to do is kind of take down that overall burden of disease that kind of we're feeling as individuals and find ways to improve that relationship with the healthcare system. And so, for example, when we kind of do symptom tracking, journaling about what's going on with somebody, we use those clinically validated scales so that, as an individual, I can note things down in our app. I can then download a report, share it with my doctor, and it uses words they recognize. And then likewise in our content, we provide like the layperson summary, right? The kind of synthesis, but we also do deep dive articles. So we use the terms your doctor might use, and you can then understand what they mean, right? So that you can kind of change that power dynamic, and kind of meet them where they are. So have a greater chance of being able to access, the best care that's available. So, we realize we don't operate in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
As a small company, we can't solve everything, but we're looking at ways like that where it's not just putting that burden of disease back on you, but like giving you tools so that you'll actually be able to access whatever system of care you're in better, right? And get a better response from that.
So yeah, actually, it gives me a lot of courage right now that this thing that we are talking about, the loop, really gonna help us that has this kind of condition. And actually the healthcare system here in the Philippines, if I share it to you, it reminds us, I mean, it's not just us who has this kind of problem, it's a system wide, right? So most likely they are telling you that you are the problem, it's your fault, you gain a lot of weight, You eat a lot. They do not know what's happening inside your body, and they're just giving you medicine that you do not know how to use it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely this system that you have created really helps a lot of women. So what gap did you see PCOS care that Loop aim to fill, and how is your the product different from what's already available for symptom management?
Yeah, so where we started, right? So we're a hardware, like a medical device company. So, when we kind of looked at PCOS, we found a body of research out of Sweden, where Dr. Stena Victorian, she's globally respected researcher in the PCOS field. She has done some amazing work over the last 30 years, and she's come up with a stimulation protocol, so electrical stimulation, that alleviates both the metabolic and the hormonal symptoms. So what you see blood glucose comes down over repeated use, and then also you see an improvement in things like menstrual regularity, so your periods kind of become more regular. And so this is her research was great, but she used acupuncture needles to deliver the electrostimulation. So what we've done is we're translating that into an at-home use device. So taking kind of like a Therabody took massage into the home. We realized like the protocol of 3 times a week, you can't afford to go. No one can afford to go for a treatment like acupuncture 3 times a week. It's way too much money. And too inconvenient, right, when we have busy lives. So we're bringing that into something you can use at home. And then, obviously it's not a cure, but it helps to alleviate those symptoms, helps to kind of hopefully halt the disease in its tracks, and then change those long-term health outcomes. Now, as we were developing the device, as I started to educate myself more on PCOS, we realized that a new treatment option is completely necessary, right? There hasn't been a lot of innovation in the PCOS space for the last 60, 70 years, but it's not enough. And so, when we look at the gaps in information, diagnosis, and care, we're we have to do more. And so we're wrapping around it a digital platform. And so, there are people out there with hormonal health or PCOS focused platforms. We're taking kind of a slightly different approach. We're very science-backed. We're looking at phenotyping as kind of the first step to personalization. And then, as I mentioned, our journaling, we're taking a very much a whole person approach. So not starting with the assumption of a regular period as the kind of baseline, but how does your condition affect you, right? And kind of your experience. But using those clinically validated scales and also some qualitative reporting so people can truly express how they're feeling, and share that with their healthcare professionals or their loved ones so they can improve those relationships. And then, as I said, we know we don't operate in a vacuum. A lot of people will be taking medication, like hormonal medication or metformin or GLP-1s. They'll also be taking supplements. So we also try and help with that. And, we're really thinking, our broader role, we'd love to contribute to the field of understanding, right, in this space. So we anticipate there'll be some drug interactions, some interactions with supplements, and also insights on things like lifestyle modifications, right, like diet and exercise, because a lot of the guidelines right now are just the guidelines for everybody. They're not really
One size fits
specific,
all.
right? One size fits all. Drink more water, eat more protein, less fat, less sugar. Exercise 3 times a week. They're not really specific to kind of the people with the PCOS condition and different, obviously very diverse manifestations of that. So, we present the evidence as it stands in our content, right? We let people make their own choices, but eventually we'd like to advance that field, right? So that we can say, if you happen to have this phenotype, did you know diet X, right? People report that diet X is particularly effective for people with the same phenotype as you, right? We'd like to get to that point where, though you're not trying 17 different diets, right? And getting exhausted and spending money, you can reduce that burden of just trialing things and like researching it for yourself and kind of give you kind of more accessible information and more relevant information.
Yeah, so hearing you articulate the specific gap loops, aim to solve gives women hope. So it really tells that someone out there sees the problem, like what you've mentioned. I mean, everything that you've mentioned clearly, and actually doing something about it. And for Filipinos like me, who've been stuck with the same solution for years, that is incredibly empowering on our end because, like what you've mentioned, you're not going to the doctor 3 times a week. At least something we have a gadget that we could use at home, something like that. And hopefully, you'd be able to, introduce that here in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's talk about science. So, how does Loops device work to help women with PCOS, and what kind of, relief or improvement that users have reported so far?
Yeah, so for your audience, PCOS is basically different functioning of the HPO axis, the system of glands and hormones that connect the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the ovaries. And so, that doesn't work as it should, and through a series of chain reactions means that the ovaries produce too much androgens, and that's kind of this, the start of the chain in terms of symptoms and complications that you can track back to there. Now, neuromodulation is delivering electrical stimulation to the body, and so this particular stimulation protocol is believed to act at 3 different levels. And so what you see within about 5 minutes is you see circulating glucose come down. So we put a CGM onto kind of a couple of volunteers for now, but we're doing our pilot clinical study formally, and pretty soon we're kicking that off. And you see circulating glucose comes down. So it has a very direct, localized effect, right? So the muscle to which the device is attached, there's an increase in blood flow, so it's like exercising. But that's short term. Over a period of about 16 weeks, use the device 3 times a week for 30 to 60 minutes, and you see a latent effect where that baseline metabolism actually shifts. And at the same time, you see an improvement in things like menstrual regularity, so hormonal indicators as well. In animal models, they've also seen, with the same stimulation, an increase in blood flow to the ovaries, which is obviously a marker for fertility. And so what they think is happening there is it's actually getting at the core of the condition. So in people with PCOS, in the hypothalamus, there's gonadotropin releasing hormone, and so it's hyperactivated. And that's kind of, right at the start, right? That's what sends instructions indirectly to your ovaries. And so they believe it actually brings that back in line. And so, like we're only going off the research that exists, but it appears to really get to the core of the condition. But as I said, it's not a cure. But as we know with PCOS, it's kind of a cumulative condition where if you gain a little bit of weight, that worsens the androgen excess and can often worsen your symptoms, and obviously it puts you at greater risk for the health complications. And so we like to just reverse the train up tracks, right? And so give people something that works. As you said, gives them, a little bit of hope, right? Because I think a lot of, you've been presented, you've tried lots of things often, and a lot of things haven't worked. And it feels, there's a heavy burden of kind of mental distress, right, with having a chronic disease like this, particularly where there aren't good solutions out there. And so, and then hopefully, with the field of research advancing on things like, supplements, lifestyle modifications, can start to kind of move the needle, right, and for those long-term health outcomes.
I see. Hearing there's something like Loop gives so much hope, right? And it's a living proof that innovation can actually have a heart, and science, and science you can use science to innovate something like this. This is the first time that I heard something like this. So when I'm listening to you, it's like, They can do that. I mean, here in the Philippines, I mean, I'm not really sure if the female technology is really coming up. But in your place in Canada, there, the government, I think the government really supports this kind of studies. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's a very nice thing to. I mean, that's the first time that I heard about it. So yeah, so for women countries like Philippines, so where we access the PCOS care is still limited.
Yeah.
So how do you envision Loop helping bridge the gap here? So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, are you planning to go here in the Philippines and introduce us this innovation that you have in Canada?
Yeah, so I mean, we're intentionally designing our app to be a consumer app, right? So, and that our next release will come out in the next few days, actually. So we're looking for like our
Nice.
first 1,000 users. So I will send you the link so you can share with your
Nice.
network.
Thank you. Yeah.
Um, it will be English language first, but then we'll look to translate into the other key markets where we see demand for this. Um, Now, how we work, like we're very collaborative. Like women's health is a great space to be collaborative, and so with kind of new markets, right, outside of where we don't understand the local nuances of the regulatory environment, we don't understand the nuances around, what some of the social issues around accessibility are, and so typically we would seek to find like a local partner that we would work with to ensure that we can localize the solution to make it
Yeah.
appropriate, localize the pricing to make sure it fulfills our desire to be accessible but meets our
Yeah.
commercial needs. And so, yeah, we're looking, for example, we have a partner in India that we're looking to commercialize it there, and we'd be very open to discussions with people who would be interested in kind of helping us navigate the Philippine market. Definitely.
Nice. Yeah, accessibility is such an important point. So especially here in the Philippines, so many women can't afford even to see a specialist.
Yeah.
So to get a basic hormone test, or so just knowing that you're thinking about ways to reach
Yeah.
women globally means a lot. So I really love that. And of course, that kind of awareness, that kind of empathy is what really makes it difference for us. So, Claire, building women's health company is never easy. So, what are the challenges that you face while developing Loop, and both as founder and the woman with PCOS yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd say in general, we see the hard stuff, right? So, I'll take like science-based and accessible, right? Our content. We
Yeah.
take things like that and we try and see them as opportunities, right? So I saw that and I was like, how can I fulfill both of these things? And so, we've created this cute avatar, Betsy the Beaver, who's our AI chatbot. So you can read the deep dive articles. Like I've written them, they're very, very heavy, right? Very dense with information. Or you can just ask Betsy questions, right? And she'll just respond to you and have a conversation. And so we try and see these things which are hard as actually opportunities, spaces. I think that's kind of the nature of entrepreneurship. And then, the fact that PCOS is so multifactorial, so it affects, leads to a lot of different health complications or increases the risk of them. Again, we choose to see that as an opportunity, right? So we are looking to build awareness within the diabetes community, within the dementia community, all these other spaces, so that, hopefully, right, the system of care starts to like lift up, and better care for people with PCOS doesn't just hit, in that first line doctors, but like across the system. I'd say, like obviously PCOS, maybe a third of the people we talk to have even heard of it, right? And so again, rather than seeing that as a challenge, it's like, well, we've got something interesting, right? Like you've never heard of it. Like, great. Like this is an opportunity for us to get the word out, to convert
Yes.
people. And so, I mean, you can't see these as kind of brick walls. You have to see them as hurdles. You just have to hop over. And so, yeah, and I think, obviously, super excited to be kind of moving forward with the beta launch of the app, but we also want this, and we want to know that what we're putting out there is valuable, helpful to kind of people with lived experience of PCOS. And so, I think kind of on the whole, we've just found the community has been so receptive to this, right? And that is kind of what drives us. It's hard to get funding for women's health things, despite the size of the opportunity is very big, but we're chipping away, and we're confident we'll kind of break that barrier and get the device in the market. Hopefully, hopefully get our first FDA clearance next year, and then be able to move forward.
That's so nice. So, if there's one message that you'd like to share with women who are struggling right now, so just like me, or in your country or my country, maybe feeling hopeless or unseen because of PCOS. So what would that be?
Yeah, I think that's the real fundamental thing, is like, we see you, right? When I speak in person, right, I often get people come up to me, and that is like, I can't give you all the solutions today, right? We're working on these things and progressing them forward, but just to know that, we're out there banging the drum, right? Like, raising awareness, but also like understand just how profoundly this condition affects somebody, right? Like, I've had hundreds of conversations one-on-one with people about their personal experience, and they're all over the map, obviously. But, I think the common theme is like, just kind of people needing to feel like, they are seen and heard. And, we try our best to build in kind of like end user feedback, into like everything we do. And so that's built into our app, right? There's feedback surveys as part of the onboarding and everything. And that's what we need, right, to fuel us and drive us forward. But, that's the whole point of doing this, is to like, if we can reduce the burden by 5%, maybe 50% in the future, like that's what we're working towards.
That is so, comforting to hear there. Really. And then, like what we're doing right now, the advocacy that we're doing with PCOS Millennials, and with Loop, and with other collaborators that I have, we really need to make it louder, so that someone out there will gonna hear us. And Claire is already here with us, doing her job to, something like giving out this kind of innovation for us to use. Hopefully, as you open this to the public, not just in Canada but globally, especially here in the Philippines. So the partnership is there, and hopefully we could have it here in the Philippines as well. The collaboration is here, the market is open, and hopefully we can do this together. So before I let you go, Claire, would you like to say something to your followers, to your social media, how they can, catch you, or they could see you? Because I've seen here, I just need to share something. This is Loop, right? I tried to open this one, and I wrote some article in my PCOS Millennials website about the specific topics that shows here. But this one, it's a partnership with Loop and Neuraura, right?
Yeah, so Neuraura is our company, and then we have a platform technology. PCOS and Loop is our main focus, but Loop is the product brand. Sorry.
Yeah.
So our website is getloop with 3 O's.com. And then, Risa, I'm going to send you some links in the
Yes.
next 4 or 5 days. So we'll send you the link for you to sign up and then to share with your network. We have Instagram and LinkedIn, depending on what platforms people follow. And then you can share it with your network. And if any listeners, like, we've got a very special deal for like the first 1,000 users, which is respecting the fact that we want your feedback and we've got work to do to kind of continue to build out the product. And so you can share that with your following, and hopefully we'll get some strong feedback from your community in terms of making this the best we can do moving forward.
Right. Thank you so much. That's very wonderful. So everyone, please check out Loop. Their work is truly changing the conversation around women's health. So, and of course, if you want to stay connected with the community here in PCOS Millennials, you can just follow on our social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And you can also visit www.pcosmillennials.com for free resources, blogs, and updates about our advocacy and upcoming events and collaboration. So, Claire, again, thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom and your heart as well with us.
Yeah,
And to
thank you.
everyone who's watching and listening, thank you so much for being part of this space and for showing, learning, and reminding the world that women with PCOS are strong, resilient, and worthy to better care. So remember, healing looks different from everyone, and that's okay. So what matters is that we keep going together.
Yeah.
So thank you so much again, Claire, for your time, and see you soon, hopefully.
Take care.
Have a nice day.
Ciao.
Bye, everyone.